artificial debt, which dedicates so much of the circulation to servicing artificial debt that we cannot sustain the industry which is obligated to do so. This purposed obfuscation of the promissory obligation, therefore, is the cause not only of all the fundamental faults and injustices we suffer, it is the fundamental cause of the present experience of inevitable failure. We absolutely must understand these issues, then, if we are to identify and to adopt actual solution. For 40 years, we have had now a vastly plagiarized proof of singular solution in mathematically perfected economy, which is simply an eradication of interest and an obligatory schedule of payment, retiring principal at the rate of consumption or depreciation of the related property. As we have told, I provided the Reagan administration in 1983 and 4 with computer models not only proving this thesis of inevitable failure by projecting from early 1980s data that the present system of global exploitation would fail at approximately 2010 AD, but which models further demonstrate that mathematically perfected economy is the only sustainable and just framework for true economy, true free markets, and true free enterprise. Thus we suffer the present escalation of injustices and inevitable failure for our own indifference and indisposition to sufficiently understand these vital matters, and for a possibly far greater and more devastating crime of the modern money changer, that to persist in these obfuscations for the singular power and sake of even terminal exploitation, the usurer must do all that they can to deny us representation. The purposed obfuscation of money, or in other words, of the one and one only process of monetization which can serve us, thus explains to vast extents why the present world is the way it is. Today, then, we stand at a critical juncture. All the things we might rightly pursue, and even the very opportunity to do so, the very opportunity even to prosper, all these things, to an ever-increasing degree, and now to a terminal degree, are about to be destroyed not only by a purposed obfuscation of our promissory obligations, of the one process of monetization which can serve us, but by our own indisposition to master these few relevant issues, to unite upon solution, and to stand for actual solution and actual solution only. An ancient legend preserved by elders of the Arabi Arizona Hopi Nation reads thus: "You've been telling the people that this is the 11th hour. Now you must go back and tell the people that this is the hour. Here are the things that must be considered. Where are you living? What are you doing? What are your relationships? Are you in right relation? Where is your water? Know your garden. It is time to speak your truth. Create your community. Be good to each other. And do not look outside yourself for the leader. This could be a good time. There is a river flowing. Now, very fast. It is so great and swift that there are those who will be afraid. They will try to hold on to the shore. They will feel like they are being torn apart, and they will suffer greatly. Know the river has its destination. The elders say we must let go of the shore, push off toward the middle of the river. Keep your eyes open and our heads above the water. See who is there with you and celebrate. At this time in history, we are to take nothing personally, least of all ourselves. For the moment we do, our spiritual growth and journey comes to a halt. The time of the lonely wolf is over. Gather yourselves. Banish the word struggle from your attitude and vocabulary. All that we do now must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration. We are the ones we have been waiting for. President Obama quoted the concluding observation of this legend in his presidential campaign. Like every president since and including Gerald Ford, all of whom have been presented not only a proposition of mathematically perfected economy, but every president since and including Reagan of whom have further been provided a proof of a singular just means not only for converting the present obfuscation into mathematically perfected economy, but which means accomplishes this purpose immediately and even virtually without cost. Because there is no disproof of our proof of one mathematically perfected economy, because he knows he can neither defeat nor even find fault in my proposition of mathematically perfected economy, President Obama's purported economic policy team returned my proposition, requested by campaign regulars, without even opening it. His purported economic policy team did this because they know who I am, what I represent, and that what they represent can never rightly prevail over mathematically perfected economy. They knew already that they were defeated in every way by the proposition they purposely never opened. A $100,000 home with a 100-year lifespan costs us only $1,000 a year under mathematically perfected economy. Why would a just people not monetize their production in the one way which ensures they can pay for the production of others with no more than equal measures of their own production? Is what they stand for, which they don't even dare even attempt to qualify or to subject to effective public scrutiny is what they cannot even defend actually change we can believe in? How even could this possibly be true without fully accountable reason? We indeed, then, are the ones we have been waiting for. Across the world, people are rising. They are demonstrating. In France, the people are threatening to remove their money from banks. These are significant emerging developments. But what we need to understand, if we are truly to be effective, is that to remove our money is not enough. We must understand that we must reconstitute our obfuscated, falsified debts to the purported banking systems. We must understand how and why we must do this, and thus how we will establish the one and one only fact of actual solution as implemented by our worldwide mandate for mathematically perfected economy and absolute consensual representation. We must unite on solution. I regularly answer questions from diligent students of this proposition of mathematically perfected economy. I would like to share some of those questions as they transpire in the natural course of work, that you can understand yourselves whether the proposition of mathematically perfected economy answers to our needs. Yet a further political movement rises in the United States, and having met by chance with some of its advocates, eventually they asked me to consider answering questions from a person who represented the general interests of the national group. I called this unofficial representative, and the following was our conversation. The questions relate, of course, not just to one example of implementation, but on the contrary, to the whole pattern of implementation. Answering the question regarding how to determine lifespan and consumption for materials which may not depreciate, of course, further explains how we determine consumption or depreciation for all materials such as gold. As we see, to answer these questions further explains how mathematically perfected economy, or the lack of mathematically perfected economy under the present system of exploitation, relates to war, to politics, and to other issues such as the costs and consequences of big oil. Lee tells me you had a couple of questions, that you've been on my web pages, so what can I do for you?
Okay, I read through some of it. I shan't say that I looked at all of it because there's a lot of stuff there. Mm-hmm. And so I guess I just have a few questions. First off, I think I understand that one of the important tenets of what you have is that the amount owed and the value of the item need to be tied together so that there's not an advantage, for instance, for repossessing early or something like that. So you have the example of a house that it should last about 100 years, and so you break out the payments over 100 years. So my question is, how do you deal with items that don't depreciate in value?
Such as gold?
Gold or property, for instance, some fine furniture. I know there's my dad's a carpenter, so I've seen where he's gone to match cabinets and the such that are 300 or 400 years old, and so obviously, it would